We're live streaming on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, www.spicefm.co.ke is our website. And also you can tag us on Twitter at Spice FM KE. Wherever you are around the country, you will find us. In Mombasa, we are on 87.9. In Nakuru, we are on 96.0. Kisumu, 102.5. Eldoret, 96.7, 90.9. In Nyeri, 97.7. In Malindi. We are joined in this hour on the hot seat by Lilian Mahiri-Zaja. She is a former vice chairperson of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Thank you very much for coming. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me here.
Yes, and of course, now when you talk about IEBC, we know, for instance, that you exited office before the end of your rightful tenure. And then we've seen now, the BBI report is out. It's talking about, let's rejig this IEBC, the current IEBC. It doesn't have 4 commissioners who have already, stepped aside. They've said they've quit or whatever they have decided to do. There's still questions out there whether they've actually resigned or not, but they're not in office. And then we have seen that the IEBC is preparing to do the boundaries review next year. So a lot to talk about in IEBC. So let's start with, should the current IEBC actually be disbanded before we start talking about a referendum, a boundaries review, anything?
I think we have politicized a lot the electoral management body in Kenya. Looks like every time we going into elections, we have to have a new body in place. It's unfortunate that now we have 3 commissioners in office, and our constitution is clear. The commission, for it to be properly constituted, has to have between 3 and 9 commissioners.
Yeah.
This is a commission, when it was constituted, had 7 members, as opposed to the commission which I served, which had 9. The ISAC-led commission, we were 9 commissioners. So very well within the constitutional requirements.
Yeah.
You ask whether it is duly constituted now, before we go into the next election. It's a question of the politics of the day. And I think a decision had been made sometime last year that, a new commission needs to be in place, owing to the fact that the other commissioners had exited. But I think because we are always in this political mood in the country, it is the political expediency that carries the day, which is quite unfortunate. We can give examples of big democracies such as India, which has over almost 1 billion voters. They only have a chairperson, 2 other commissioners, and the commission is run by public servants. So we can see right now Kenya, which has much, much fewer voters, of course, quite a paltry compared to the Indian one. We've been having 7 commissioners, 9 commissioners, and all operating under the kind of political environment
that they do.
And so far, the commissioners are in office. They have been carrying out their mandate as per the constitution. So it's a question of what needs to be done politically.
Political expediency.
Yes.
And you've said it's unfortunate. Of course, you've already told us that this is, you've seen it. We have seen the Kivuitu Commission came and went. The Isaac Hassan IEC came and went. The IEBC came and went. Now we are saying Chebukati must go. It's always, we are constantly in this cycle of, getting people in, getting them out of the commission. How can we protect the electoral management body from this kind of incessant politics all the time? Is it possible? Is it wise even?
When Kriegler came in and gave recommendations for an independent body, these are the kind of things, which had come out during the commission's work. They came in to see and to investigate what is wrong with the electoral system, what is wrong with our processes. And one of the recommendations was that we have an independent commission. Looking at our history, which you have recounted, we can talk about the Kivuitu Commission, what happened, and they were disbanded. And then we come right up to the Isaac Hassan, then the Chebukati Commission. We want to disband that. how can that commission serve if it is not insulated against the politicians, the political class, and the political processes? After all, it is a political process.
Right. And is it possible to have a body like this independent of any kind of political interference? Is it possible with what we've seen over time? Because you'll always have people who are aggravated for one reason or another, or somebody who wants to make sure that they are confident that the body's carrying out due process. Is it possible, really, even with all the recommendations, to have an independent electoral body in this country with the way we do politics?
The way we do politics in Kenya, it's now becoming evident it might be impossible, but it is possible. This is why when we passed our new constitution, the Constitution of 2010, we established the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. You see, the commission is independent, yes. Operationally, it is independent. Financially, operationally, we are independent, yes. We say it is an independent body. Financially, we have to be accountable. Even operationally, really, we have to be accountable to the people of Kenya. Your finances come from the exchequer, and therefore they have to be passed through Parliament for approval, and that is where now the independence is checked.
But is it really independent?
It is independent because operationally you manage your processes. But when it comes to financial independence, this is where now your independence is checked against other parameters of your operational independence. And that is where the problem is, because it becomes politicized.
Madam Commissioner, if I am to believe what you're saying, and I would like to, are we then to suggest that all the accusations that have been leveled against, say, the IEBC have been without foundation?
You may want to give examples, because as far as I'm concerned, the law is very clear. The IEBC Act is very clear that every official of the EMB, a commissioner, staff, they take personal responsibility for their actions. So if there is any accusation against the IEBC, you must level it against the responsibility. Somebody has to be accountable for their actions.
The example that I'm going to give is what came out when the Supreme Court nullified the presidential election that we had. It was processes. That's what it boiled down to. And it's these processes that are managed by the IEBC.
Yes, and that is where now I come to say an individual must be held accountable. Somebody has to be held accountable for those irregularities that happened. The processes must be checked and audited against what the law provides. If the law provides for this, what didn't you do? Or what did you fail? What did you fail to do? Or what did you omit? Your omissions and commissions, you must stand accountable for them. And that is where now I believe if somebody is alleged to have committed an offense or omitted to do something, then you are audited against that. You are accountable to the people.
This body that we have, the IEBC,
yes,
from my observation, it was clear to me as an individual, that they had done whatever was within their means to actually carry out a credible election. I could see it. But what I could also see is that many of the commissioners seemed to be ill at ease. Your body language indicated that there were many things you were uncomfortable with. What I'm getting at is this. Did you really genuinely feel that you were independent in carrying out your functions? That's what I'm asking.
When I was serving, I felt I had the independence. Yeah, operationally, we were making decisions. And remember, this was different from what we've seen in the Chebukati Commission. We carried out whatever decisions we made were made via consensus. There was agreement across board that this is what we are doing. We are all in agreement. We never really had a time when we really had divisions. We only voted once, and that was with regard to having the diaspora participating in the elections.
In the 2013 election.
Yes, and that was the only time we voted. The other times it was by consensus. So I want to believe that we operationally had the independence we needed to carry out our mandate.
The Isaac Hassan Commission, of course, came under a lot of pressure as well. So, yes, the IEBC, it did the referendum and then became IEBC, went into the 2013 general election. And out of that, of course, there was no nullification of the 2013 election, but there was still the political nullification of the 2013 election because the parties that had gone to the Supreme Court came out and said, we don't agree, but we accept. And that's when the pressure started coming out. Isaac Hassan must go. And of course, it meant that all of you had to be swept aside. What are those intrigues? What is it that actually made you guys be, let's say, dismissed, so to speak?
You're right that after the 2013 general elections and after the Supreme Court ruling, because it came out clearly that, again, there were people who are responsible for some of the irregularities that happened. And we came back, and I think we were one of the institutions at that time under the spotlight from every other constitutional commission. The Commission on Administrative Justice, the ESCC pounced on us, Parliament pounced on us, and we went to Parliament and presented our case and presented the evidence that we did indeed conduct the elections in accordance with the Constitution and the laid down laws. But I think we have set a trend, as we said in the beginning. Every time we have a general election, the election is so divisive to the point that the country is split right in the middle. So one side is aggrieved, another side is celebrating. So the aggrieved party cannot rest until they remove the referee. And that is exactly what happened to the Isaac Hassan team. That the aggrieved party, much as they had the right to go to court, they went to court, and the ruling was made. And of course, the Supreme Court was alive to all the procedural things that didn't go right and made recommendations on what was to happen. But the aggrieved party was not satisfied. We still appeared before the ESCC. We went and appeared before Parliament. That was not enough. So Parliament looked for a political solution. And the political solution was to get the commissioners out of the way and have a new commission.
So was who then, I mean, from your point of view, where did the problem lie? Because at some point, obviously, the aggrieved party comes and complains and there's a problem and it's been removed, commissioners go home. But then there's another side who were perfectly okay with the way things went. Otherwise, they would have complained, right? So then where was the problem? Was the problem, according to you, with IEBC? Did you accept? Was
it a perception problem?
Did you accept fault as the IEBC?
We accepted fault in as far as the processes were concerned. But remember, there is always so much focus on the presidential petition, presidential election results, and we forget all the others. Why do we put such premium on the presidential election? Yet, when we managed the election of 2013, all the by-elections after the petitions were finalized and we conducted by-elections returned the same person who had been voted for on the 4th of March, except for one particular by-election. I think it was too close to call, and one new person came in Kisumu, if I remember. But all the other by-elections
returned
the same.
So there was no problem with process.
Nobody talked about process, and of course, when the petitions were discussed, deliberated in court, everything was clear. But for the presidential petition, it's always that we are divided right in the middle.
So, but you said that
the
there was a
opposition
problem.
will always make noise.
Right.
The aggrieved party will always make noise.
Yeah.
Then, of course, the winning party will be happy.
But you said there was a problem procedurally at the IEBC.
Processes. I'm talking about processes. And this is where somebody petitions that in this case, my votes were not counted, so there is a repeat of, a vote recount,
right,
or something happened at the polling station. Those are things that are processes.
Yes, understood.
On the management.
Right.
Yes.
So now, would you see that this replicated itself at the presidential and as well as all other stages? Because was there a problem with process at the presidential level or on all other levels? Where would you see that the problem really was? Because like you said, people take issue with the presidential results much more than they do with all other, because by-elections happened and everybody seemed to be okay. What was the problem with process at the presidential level? Because I think it's extremely important. In another 2 years, we're going there, whether IEBC, whether mandate will be given or not. But if there's a problem with process at the presidential level where everybody's attention is, then that's something that needs to be dealt with. If we know what the problem is, really.
Yeah, it was obvious that at the presidential level, there was a lot to do with technology. And in particular, the transmission of
the results.
Results are transmitted all the way from the polling stations through to the levels and from the polling stations to the tallying centers, the tallying centers at the constituencies, then to the counties, then to the national tallying center. So people had issues. I know during the petition there were issues about the results transmission and the tallying of the forms, which brought issues, and all those were interrogated. And after interrogations and all the issues put together, well, recommendations were made again on how the tallying should be, on how the processing of the results should be.
Right.
And I think a lot has been done to improve transmission of results, because remember, in the 2013 general elections, the IEBC took on and embraced technology in a big way for all the major processes within the electoral process. So I think all those recommendations that were made, a lot has been done to improve, in particular, technology. But remember, people are not easily, how would I put it? They would not believe those results coming down. Convince, really. Convince or accept.
Actually,
they easily do not accept.
They can't accept and move on.
I would put it this
not
way.
accept that the results, the technology works. Yes. It's not
This could
easy
be
for
because
them.
of the fact that previously didn't. You see?
There was no technology before.
There was no
2013.
technology.
But
There was no
even
technology.
with technology,
Even with the technology.
the thing you must understand, it'll have teething problems. These phones that we claim to be used to hang, sometimes they do something crazy and it deletes everything that you have. You can't foresee it.
Well,
Of
at
course you can't
least,
foresee, but when a presidential election hangs in
results
the
were never
balance,
deleted.
of course.
But there are also issues to do with even the transmission through the servers, through the Safaricom systems, because IBC cannot do it alone.
Of
You
course,
have to
but
partner with
partners
others.
with
when a presidential election, for example, and the results therefore are hinged on this, you can imagine that people will say there's foul play involved, whether it's used for the first time or the 10th time.
And
If there's
sometimes
a problem,
sometimes it's imaginary, because
but still perceived.
when they look at results from their strongholds, they accept
They're okay with those.
Yeah.
And
So why would they accept them and not accept when it is coming from probably the other side? See, these are the inconsistencies that are there when you're dealing with technology.
Let's allow our guest to have a sip of water. This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. On the hot seat this morning is Lilian Mahiri-Zaja. She is a former vice chairperson of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. She was in the Isaac Hassan Electoral Commission.
I think one.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think one of the things that, of course, increases suspicion, even if for the loser, is the fact that perhaps they could be more transparent, the elections themselves. And to this end, perhaps the idea of actually recording the results on video, so at the constituency level or even ward level for the presidential candidate, actually recording that, what they say, and then sending that video, as opposed to transmitting, because it's this transmission that is not transparent. It's something people can't see. Have you considered that? Did you guys consider that previously?
I think, first of all, let's start from the point where Kenyans have little trust or not trust when it comes to the electoral process. And we did a lot as IEBC when we served, and we did a lot of training even for agents at the polling stations, because we say elections are held really at polling stations. So if any agent has an issue, has a query on the processes, on the results, that has to be made at the polling station. You lose an election at the polling station. So by the time things happen and escalate to the national level, you should come with evidence right from the polling station, from the tallying of the results, to the transmission, to the constituency, to the county, and then to the national level. It should be an escalation, and it should be a thread that one can see. So when we adopted technology at the polling stations, from the polling stations, we believed Kenyans were now able to see that the process is transparent. And that is one of the most important things for people to believe that this process is transparent. So you have to see it right from the time you vote.
Would it be more transparent? This is what I'm asking, with this idea of a video. And as opposed to results being...
So you send the form and send a video clip as well of the returning officer declaring the winner.
The winner at
or
the ward level.
votes.
But announcements are done at the polling stations.
Now record it.
Unless now you want to make a good proposals, maybe to the BBI, that we want now the presiding officer to make announcements, and it should be video. It should be done by video. That is a proposal that can be taken forward.
And then you can correlate those videos and actually decide what the result is.
Because results have been...
It's that transmission that people worry about.
Results
what is happening in that
printed.
transmission?
We have printed results from polling stations, transmitted the same, and people have not.
And even the physical copies still come.
The physical copies come from the polling stations. They go all the way to the constituency.
Are you saying
all
there's
the way
no
to the
electoral fraud whatsoever?
I'm not saying 100%. I cannot vouch for that. But I'm saying it is as transparent as that. That those are the measures put in place from polling station to the constituency, where they are tallied again. They are retallied together with the others that come from all over the constituency. Then from the constituency to the county, again where they are retallied, just to confirm. All these are confirmations. And until they get to the national level, remember now, what we proposed even is that announcements are made at each level. At the polling station, announcement is made. At the constituency,
at county.
At the county, so that at the constituency, the MP is announced. At the county level, you have your governor and all the others are announced. Then at the national level, then we are concerned about our presidential candidate.
Now, of course,
and that thread should go up to that level so that people can see it is a clear, open process.
And of course, it's not just the polling and the counting and the actual elections that you're responsible for as the commission. You're also responsible for registration.
Definitely.
How rigorous are you in ensuring that there's no malpractice in registration? Because that's yet another point at which people, or where there has been claims of irregular or fraudulent activity.
You see, now the IEBC must follow the law. The principles are well laid out in the Constitution on the equality of the vote. Each person's vote counts. And this is where now everybody, even the the Elections Act, lays out the process by which somebody is registered, and where even people can go, a member of the public can go and say so and so should not be registered, can actually contest registration of a person. So the processes are well laid out. Once you have attained the age of 18, you're eligible to be registered as a voter. You present your ID or your document, if it's a passport, for registration before the registration officer. And you go through the process, and then you're given out, of course now Parliament, ruled out that it's not necessary you must have a voter's card, but you are registered. And you're on the registers.
The
voters registers rule.
Kriegler Commission had recommended that once you register for your ID, you should automatically be registered as a voter. That's one of the recommendations that still hasn't come to light.
Yeah, because our system is different. We are not well connected with the other registration systems in the country. In other developed countries, they do that. We have not reached there. So our register is
Is it not
separate.
possible
We have
for
separate.
IEBC, instead of coming to me and ask me to come and register, just go to the registrar of persons and pick from that
The
database?
list. It's there.
I have my
available.
ID. So what I
Actually,
need
it
when I'm
isn't
coming to
picking.
vote is just come and
you
give
write
you.
a program.
Yeah, now you see, we do not have
And let the program
registers.
pick.
We do not have registers that speak to each other. And now you can see the government has made concerted efforts
The Huduma number.
for us to have an Huduma number and have these various disparate registration systems interlinked. So probably when we get to that point, IEBC would be in a position to ensure that it is interlinked with those other registration processes. We had the IPRS system that was meant to bring together all the agencies that do registration, IBC being one of them, the NSSF, the NHIF, the KRA, the Office of the Registrar of Persons, Immigration. All these need to be interlinked. Otherwise, for now, IEBC must do its own separate voters roll, which again they have to run against that one of the registration of persons, so that they ensure that
confirm
even the
that the
dead
person-
voters are out and confirm that this person truly is
Is Kenyan.
Is it
Kenyan
that-
and has an ID.
Is
Yes.
it that we cannot create that synergy, or is it that we do not want to create that synergy?
I want to believe.
I
want to
apologize.
believe.
I'm
No.
not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just asking, yes.
No, by good luck, I was a pioneer member of the task force that looked into how IPRS could happen in Kenya. And at that time, it was early in the days, early 2000, and we realized that every government agency that was carrying out some form of registration, the NHIF, the KRA, NSSF, IBC, and then that time it was ECK, the Office of the Registrar General, the Office of the Registrar of Persons, Immigration, they were all at different levels of embracing technology. And even up to now, I'm sure they are still not synchronized in terms of the level where they are in terms of technology. So I'm sure one day when we get there and every registration agency has, made great strides in embracing technology, we might have that linkage that we are looking for in having one Huduma number and making access to services easy for wananchi.
Much easier as needed. We have on the hot seat Ms. Lilian Mahiri-Zaja. She is a former vice chairperson of the IEBC. She is not in the current one. She's a former one. She was in the Isaac Hassan-led IEBC commission. Of course, we are tapping from her knowledge as an expert in electoral matters. She worked as a commissioner. She's a lawyer. She's worked in various other spheres, like she's telling us. She was in the task force for IPRC and all this. And that's what we're discussing this morning. We'll open up the phone lines shortly. The IEBC is supposed to review the boundaries for constituencies. At least before the next general election. And IEBC has already announced that this exercise is going to be conducted next year. It has already written to the Bureau of Statistics asking for data, official data of people and where they reside, right? Now, of course, we've seen the politicians coming in, and this is where the issues come in. There's a required quota for every constituency to have as a number of people versus a number of space. The politics come in here. What kind of politics do you actually see playing before we get into the nitty-gritty of it? From the broad side, what do you actually see playing out? If you are in IEBC, how would you have approached this?
Wow. Boundary delimitation is such an explosive exercise. And this is where politicians come to claim they're tough. So you'd expect to see all kinds of politics right from the local level, from the ward level, from the lowest level. And now, when you look at the national landscape, you're looking at a country that is split right down to the clans. Very shocking for us when we did the boundary delimitation in 2012, when we were finishing, to realize that people are divided right down to their clans when politics now matters. And those are the kind of politics we expect to see, because politicians will be trying to carve in their minds the boundary for their constituencies, the boundaries for their counties. If they are eyeing the governor's seat, they'll be looking at the county. If you're eyeing the MP seat, you're looking at the constituency. So those are the kind of politics you will see. People grouping together and forgetting that some of these things, okay, we will play politics, of course, as Kenyans, as usual. But all these things have been spelled out in the Constitution. The parameters are well laid out in Article 89 on how the process should be done. So if people were a little careful and just see that they need to look at their population, they need to see the developments in their area, the community of interest, geographical boundaries, then they might be able to have well-informed political input into the process, because we cannot divorce this process from the politics of the day. It is a political process.
It's a political process.
Yes.
That time when the Legality Commission was doing the boundary delimitation, of course, there are some constituencies that had not met the threshold, but they were created. Now there is talk of other people who are saying our constituency is overpopulated, it should be split. And yet the Constitution tells us we cannot go beyond or below 290. We have a set number of constituencies, 290. What should happen? Would it be fair for a former constituency if it still remained small, if it had gotten that, if it had been created as a constituency and still hasn't met the threshold, would it be fair to merge it with a bigger one? And then split a larger one?
Yeah, you've said something that the constituencies are already numbered. In Article 89, we have 290 constituencies. And this is something that we'll see playing out. And not just constituencies, even counties. People are clamoring for more counties. And of course, here there were around 21 constituencies that fell below the threshold. And on affirmative action principle, they were allowed to stand. Those of Lamu and I think Samburu and those that fell within that 21. They were allowed to stand on affirmative action. But now as we go into the process again, yeah, you're right that there are those that will say we are now big, we want to be split. And splitting constituencies is not just a matter of people having the population and now they want to split. They want to get resources. It's about resources. It's about proper management and access to public resources. So this is the question now. We are so many. We want to be divided so that those ones on that side can have, their own resources mapped out at their own level, and we also have our own. So those conversations have been going on, and same for the counties. We want our own county. We don't want to be within this county. Examples in Busia, the Tesos, in Migori County, the Kuria people, and one or two others, the Taita and the Tavetas. Yes. So you'll see those debates going on.
But we actually have had situations where constituencies have disappeared. I know for a fact that within what we now call Nyando, there used to be a constituency called Winam. It actually disappeared.
Called?
Winam. It disappeared. Meaning one election there was an MP for that area. By the time we got, it coincided with this period when boundaries were being set. It disappeared. So it isn't new.
It became lost out.
Yes, and also remember when we started creating new districts, the very thing that you're saying happened. A district is created, it doesn't have the resources. So for instance, what was a sub-district hospital is now being called a district hospital, but it doesn't have the facilities that a district hospital should have. A dispensary, you now want to call it a health center. It cannot be a health center, because for it to be a health center, it has to have certain facilities. So it is all good and well to clamor, but if the rules by which these entities should exist is actually followed, even if there's noise, and there will be noise, it won't actually matter. Because I don't see a situation where, if, for instance, a constituency disappears for the reasons that are set down, that people won't make noise. Remember, one of the noises that is often made is that constituencies are created to favor certain people. For instance, if my clan is populous in a certain area and the current constitution pits half of them in another constituency, all you do is you carve it out so that my entire
So
clan
we are
now
all together.
Yes. So it then gives me the ability to be able to be, well, I have a high
The
chance of being
advantage
elected.
as well, yeah.
Yes.
I don't know whether the word disappeared would be apt in this case, because what I know is that after boundary delimitation process and after listening to various views, the commission only followed what the people wanted. And there were a few places where people asked for renaming of their constituencies. So I'm surprised that you're using the word
No, it disappeared.
Could it have been absorbed?
No.
Is that a
It
better
may
way?
have
Or
been
renamed.
absorbed elsewhere and renamed.
I actually use the
Renamed.
word disappear deliberately because if it existed,
It
at
is
this
a
end-
misleading one because constituencies were renamed when boundaries were reset.
Kikuyu.
No, the constituency as it was then known ceased to exist.
So what happened?
Was
Was
no
it
longer
Did
Where
another
did
one
it
come
go?
into place?
Was it
there
merged with
another
another
name?
one, or was it renamed?
It
No,
must have been renamed.
No, it wasn't renamed. They were merged. Yes.
Yeah, so you see, once
And
they are
then-
merged and boundaries are reset,
they
that
were
means
merged.
you get a new name that will favor everybody on the
Yes.
ground.
So the former one has disappeared.
Yes.
Lilian.
Where you
Not really
where you were
disappeared.
once
It was
from,
absorbed.
you're no longer from there anymore.
You have a new name,
You have a new
and that
name.
must have been
And
by
you have-
consensus.
New fellow
Okay,
constituents.
Perhaps I'm giving the example of where I come from. Let me give you a different example. For instance, Nyando, as it was known, covered what you called the Moroni area. Now, Moroni is a constituency on its own. Nyando is a constituency on its own. So, again, it was rejigged yet again. So, you then had two entities where previously there had been one.
So one reappeared now.
Yes,
Supposed
no.
to disappear.
So, perhaps the term disappeared.
One was born.
So there is renaming of constituencies when we do the boundaries.
There is, but the point I was making was that with the renaming and the reshaping of it, certain demographic advantages also disappear. This one, I'm not using the word disappear because if, say, for instance, and others appear, I come from Moroni. With this configuration, if I were to vie for a seat, I would be advantaged in that the people who originally came from where I came from are the dominant group in Moroni. So I have an advantage. But when it was one whole body called Nyando, that advantage did not exist.
You are minority.
Yes, not a very small. My clan was a very small minority. Yes. So all I'm saying is, when I use the word disappear, it's because it's not just the name that changes, so it ceases to exist, but certain demographics also change.
Yeah, and even new dynamics come into play because the people who would ordinarily say you wanted to vie as an MP, the people where you'll get majority of votes from are those who know you within Mohoroni and not from Nyando.
Yes.
Yeah, because now Nyando is separate.
Yes, and
So
you'll
it
find
will be to your advantage.
yes, or in my case, you'd find there are people from my clan who are also in Nyando. So, and maybe a previous configuration favored me more because they're all in one little basket, but now they've been divided. So all I'm saying is I use the word disappear deliberately because in essence, if someone had political ambitions, that's what happens. Your advantage disappears. Yeah, it's gone.
Vanishes just
Yes.
like that. I'm concerned about what you said, Lilian, that the commission at the point was listening and took to account everything that the people asked for. If we continue with that, are we not going to actually bring in a lot of more chaos? Because
Everybody's opinion in this case
everybody's
matters.
opinion matters.
What
The
I
people of
actually-
Kuria want their own constituency and their own county.
They do have their own constituency.
They want their own county now. Right?
What I actually
Taita and Taveta want to be different. And then, of course, those 21 constituencies that were small, they still want to remain.
What I actually meant is that this process was consultative. Remember, Ligale had done a lot of work. And the documents, the records we received from the IEBC formed part of what the Isaac Hassan team used in terms of carrying out the final boundaries review process in 2012. And that process was consultative for the first time, after Kriegler recommendations that it be a consultative process. People should be asked on the ground, what do you want to see in your boundaries? That's what we did. And the reports actually, whatever decisions we made as IEBC were
Reflective of
contested.
that.
Were contested in court. And High Court made final determinations by July of 2012. So you see, it is that public participation that brings in all these, concerns of the people. It's about the concerns of the people. But you see, you cannot accommodate each and every. And this is why those who are not satisfied with what IEBC finally came out with, and you cannot carve out every border, every boundary through the rivers, the hills, the shopping centers to appease everybody. So those who went to court, and by July 2012 we had, our boundaries set out. But up to now, this is another area. If we open up, and we are opening it up, because boundary delimitation has to happen every 8
to 10 years.
12 years.
12 years.
And after a census. So now we've had the census, and this is why IEBC has already gone out and reached out to the Bureau of Statistics to find out exactly how many people do we have, the household survey that they always undertake, so that they can know how many people have increased in this specific ward or this specific constituency, and are they due for a review? We cannot touch the constituency, we cannot touch the wards, but people need to know that once it is opened up, it becomes a Pandora's box.
It does.
With all these politics around and everybody wanting a piece of the pie.
Tell me,
because of the fight for resources.
Tell me, Lilian, other than the geographical areas, so the landmass and the population, what other considerations in terms of parameters do you take into account when deciding these boundaries? You talked of Lamu and them falling below the threshold, but for purposes of affirmative action or because they were marginalized communities, you allowed it. So what other parameters do you take into consideration?
Yeah, the parameters are set in the Constitution. These are constitutional criteria in Article 89, that the Commission has to look at the population, the geographical area, has to look at community of interest,
right,
and has to look at the means of communication, how this area has developed, and those are very key in determining those boundaries.
Any
So
political
it is not
influence on those considerations, on those parameters?
We said it is a political process. So the political influence comes in form of people's views. This is what we want. So the politicians will agitate for what they would like to see through the views that people give. But of course, the Commission has to be very careful and take into account only what is provided for in the Constitution, giving latitude here and there to the people's concerns. Because there are sometimes you have to listen to what people on the ground have to say. Like if they are not sharing a market is very far from them, the administrative headquarters are far from them. We had all those concerns being put to us, that we take so long to travel from here to go and seek government services from this particular area. Why can't we have our own, within this locality? So all these now will come out more clearly, because people are growing, the population is growing. The fight for resources which are scarce will always be there. And of course, the politics around it, you cannot rule it out. Okay. But it's not a main consideration for the IEBC politics.
Do you think we should get to a point where, now this is just seeking your personal opinion, we should get to a point where we open up maybe the Constitution and stop limiting the number of constituencies and allow the IEBC to actually look at population, look at all those other factors and say, because of this, we see a need to, let's say, split a constituency or create a new constituency. So we don't limit the IEBC in its work. Now you're telling it, your hands are tied, but do a delimitation of boundaries.
Kriegler made very good recommendations that the work of boundary delimitation should be separated from the work of managing and conducting elections. That we haven't done. And remember, we still have Article 1.
So we should be having a separate body to do this work.
We should have a separate body, and Article 188 of the Constitution mandates Parliament to come up with a commission, an independent commission that can look into boundaries of counties. Probably if we had that independent commission, as per Kriegler's recommendations. That would be dedicated into looking at the boundaries review, so that any time that we need to review these boundaries, because we will have to open up some time and look at the boundaries of constituencies. We can't just stay at 290. And of course, we'll also have to look at the boundaries of counties at one point, if we are not changing, our system of governance. So if we have a dedicated commission, then that commission will look into boundary delimitation so that they see how people can better be served by government at their local level. Otherwise, this fight for resources, this fight for our own offices, our own counties, our own constituencies, our own ward will continue.
Would it be prudent to merge to reduce the numbers that we have, or from what you're saying, many small ones, make them autonomous in that regard, or to say bring them together and let's have less, and then it will be easier to manage? But from what you see, we have 290. Who says it has to stay that way for forever with some of the challenges that we see in this country? Then would it be prudent to reduce the numbers that we have, or increase?
It might be prudent to have a national conversation on this, whether to merge or, reduce them or maintain them. Because remember when we had the Bomas draft, and those are a couple of years ago,
right?
We had recommendations or proposals for 18 regions. But when we went to the next level, now we opened it up and said no. And this is because I'm sure everybody was saying this, I can't be in this region.
Yes. Yep.
Remember initially, we even had how many provinces? 8 provinces.
8.
Yeah, so when the Bomas draft came out, there were proposals for 18. So we might want to have a national conversation around this issue, so that those who feel they have been disadvantaged before and might feel still disadvantaged now. Remember, we are saying those who want their own counties now because they already feel marginalized. They thought they were going to be included in this new system of governance, but now they feel isolated. So how can we ensure that all these principles we have in the Constitution, inclusivity, those who have been disadvantaged before, are brought in to feel part and parcel of this big government that we have at national level and at the local level, at the county level. So it is a national conversation we should have, I believe, because if we propose that we reduce them, on what basis?
Right.
We have to come up with parameters that will make sense to everybody.
And agreeable. That's where the problem will be.
And that's where the starting point will be, I want my own county.
Of course.
Everybody will want their own county.
But you can't get everybody on board. It's never happened.
Not everybody would be wholly satisfied.
Yes.
At least the majority.
Yeah.
Yes, that is why you have thresholds. You say,
majority.
so long as we get this percentage, then we can feel it's representative. I feel the discussion that is actually in my mind is one of how do you get Kenyans to be a more believing people? Before you came in, we were talking about religion, and the discussion was that they are over-trusting when it comes to religion. But they seem to compensate it with politics.
Mistrust.
Complete mistrust. Yes, in everything political. It's like even the best proposal, instead of understanding it, the attempt seems to be to shoot it down. Yes,
you say
or dismantle it completely. Yes.
It's because our politics are tribal-based. Now, if you go to our tribes again, we are broken down right to the clan.
Yes.
So how can you satisfy people on that basis? What parameters will you come up with to ensure that this tribe, this clan, accepts?
The reward for political office, I think, has been seen to be something that to aspire for, the clan becomes the means of getting it. My tribe becomes the means of getting it. So my politics will guarantee that I position myself in the best possible selfish, self-centered way that would benefit me. And tribe seems to be and tribe is a good vehicle.
Definitely.
That's
where
to get you there, right?
That's where the politician starts. You start from your own backyard.
How can we change
before
this?
You move out?
Because it's even been documented. Even in the BBI reports talking about people not trusting their leadership, their government. How can we change this? What is it that we need to do so that we can now get to a point where we start trusting our politics?
Why don't we ask, how can the government be more trustworthy? Let's start with that.
But who is government if it is not you and me working together, building a national ethos, as a BBI report says, you know, building the nationhood.
I believe you have a point.
Nation that we all belong to.
There's
we
the
feel
institutions that there is a trust deficit between the citizens and the government in this country, and it's primarily the institutions. People don't trust the institutions. I don't think they're sufficiently strong, perhaps because we're a young nation. But we can't disregard what CT is saying in terms of that trust deficit. Our trust and confidence in public institutions in this country is
very low,
at an all-time low, I think. And when it comes to something like the IEBC, which is the cornerstone of commissions in terms of our existence and peaceful existence as Kenyans, I think it's important that we build this trust. How can you build this trust?
You know,
it's difficult because remember where we were in 2007 when we went down. Nobody trusted the police. Nobody trusted the judiciary. Nobody trusted the electoral body. So everything was down. Everything was down.
Who do people trust? Their tribe.
That's a question. That's a question
their tribe,
we need
their
to
clan.
answer.
It goes all the way
their
down.
pastor.
No, it's not. I don't think it's that simple. It is easier to use mistrust as a tool for presenting your views to the world rather than take responsibility. Taking responsibility is harder. When Madam Commissioner talked about the role of the citizenry, we do not hold our leaders accountable. We don't. Even the media, us, we've been accused of not holding people accountable or taking sides. And those accusations do find fertile ground. There are instances when it is true. But ask yourself the simple question. Why is it that every 5 years, for most Kenyans, elections are a life and death issue?
And that ties up with the question that Nyeri has asked, that IEBC being a cornerstone in the whole process. Why don't people trust the IEBC?
Actually, it's unfortunate, but you're the scapegoat.
Yeah, actually, it is true. IEBC is a scapegoat.
Yes.
And I'll say this with examples. I have observed elections in a number of countries on the continent and beyond. And just our neighbors in Tanzania. 2015, I was observing elections there. Election materials delayed, and we were in a certain polling station. And when we drove into that particular polling station, the people just came, approached us and asked, have you now brought the papers? Thinking we are part of the electoral team. And we told them, no, we are not the...
They weren't angry.
They were not angry.
Suspicious.
They waited.
They stepped back and said, ni sawa, tutasubiri tu. Why can't we have that kind of attitude? Attitude. Because the attitude in Kenya is that they'll steal our votes. That's where we start from.
Yes.
That's where we start from. In fact, if it was in Kenya, that vehicle would have been stoned. That you have delayed and you are still coming to talk to us. How dare you?
But you know, Madam...
In fact, we would have had a lot of security around us.
Madam Commissioner, I have there's a little advantage of chronology on my side.
Tell us the example when you come out of the break.
Yes.
We're getting into the top of the hour. It's coming up to 9 o'clock. We have on the hot seat Lilian Mahiri-Zaja. She's a former vice chairperson of the IEBC, the Isaac Hassan-led IEBC. We'll ask her to stay with us for a couple of more minutes, maybe about 10 minutes, as CT gives us his chronological example of what happens in this country.
Well, about our elections, mistrust didn't start with the IEBC. In 1966, there was a by-election in Nakuru town. I happened to live in Nakuru, and I was a child then. How old was I? 8 years old. But I do remember that the discussion, one of the things that was peculiar about that election was that ballot boxes were found in Njoro River. The sitting MP at that particular time had been somebody called Achieng' Oneko. And that election was won by somebody called Mark Mwithaga, who continued to be MP for the longest time and had the distinction of actually winning an election while still in prison.
Fantastic. Miracles do happen. Jerry was doubted
So
previously.
what I'm saying is the issue of mistrust in our politics didn't begin yesterday. And that's why I said the IEBC are scapegoats. Yes.
I'm glad you do.
No, I actually do know that you're scapegoats. I do know because the burden that is placed on this one institution for a national madness, it's actually too much for any one institution.
And I've argued before that we need to find a way of completely insulating the IEBC from the players. There's no way, and I gave you the example of referees. There's no way teams can come up and start saying, you know, we need to choose who's going to be the referee for our next match. Or even start arguing with the referee in the middle of the game. If you have anything to argue against the referee, take it to a higher body. And this is why we have courts. So this thing of politicians constantly coming to talk about IEBC, in fact, even now, we're talking about tinkering the IEBC, allowing political parties to choose who is going to be in the IEBC. This is where manipulation of IEBC, not even manipulation of IEBC, is just where the
it is manipulation.
And intimidation.
That's where it begins.
And you know what?
The IEBC.
You have to play by the rules. If they don't play by the rules, then the referee's hands are tied to the rules. So you'd not blame the referee.
Do we allow
some misplaced blame?
Do we allow the politician to choose the governor of the central bank?
No, we don't.
Yes. No. Do we allow them to choose who heads KRA? Now, these are institutions that touch our lives on a daily basis.
Constantly.
Yes. Do we allow them to choose who heads the police?
They say because this is a political process, therefore they must be involved because.
In fact, more so because it's a political process. More so because
it's why they should not touch it.
It's just why they should not be involved in that process at
all.
But how
because
do we
the
ensure
moment
that
they
we
touch
this?
Is it them to ensure? It's not them to ensure.
No, how do we ensure that we get this? That we get this?
To get an independent
Politicians
body.
have, for over time, made sure that they are the ones who appear to be the most important stakeholder in an election. Yet they are the least important, in my opinion. The voter is the most important stakeholder in an election. He's the one who's participating in electing a new leader. You as a candidate, you sit there, wait. If people elect you...
If they elect you, well and good.
Well
if they
and
don't, thank you very much. Carry on.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think I actually do agree with that because we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, whereby they believe that they're now being put into a position of lordship, and then they must be involved. Then when it comes to how they are selected, and then must ask questions.
These people are not put in that position. They demand and they force themselves into those positions
and feel that they should be involved in the process because woe be unto the individual who has anything to do with them not being elected.
Any space that has inherent power within it will be occupied by our lawmakers. They become the most important people, and their game becomes the most important game in town.
Back to Lilian for a second. Lilian, as a woman in this game and at the helm of the game, so to speak, what sort of hurdles have you come across? Do you think your gender has played any, or has been instrumental in any of the adversities you might have faced, any of the struggles you might have faced? Is it difficult up there? Do you stand out as a woman?
You might want to assess me and give me that scorecard. But I think personally, it was really an honor to serve on the IEBC commission. And I think once you understand your mandate, that you have a constitutional mandate, and you are accountable to the people, then your gender should not matter.
It's not an issue.
Yeah. You just discharge and exercise your powers in accordance with the law, and know that finally, if somebody has an issue with whatever decisions you've made, they will go to court. They will not say that woman, Lilian, ABC, did this. No. It will be a question of putting the facts and checking them against what the law says.
Sure.
But I think as a woman, yeah, it's only a hurdle when you want to put yourself down, when you're not confident about what you're doing. I think that is where one can have problems, because politicians can be intimidating. As key players in the game, they can be intimidating, but you have to stand up, tell them the truth, as they say, speak truth to power, and you'll be free. So once they know the truth and that you are doing your work, that's it. You are accountable to the people.
Madam Commissioner, would you say that women in positions of authority are actually judged by a much higher standard and perhaps treated unfairly?
Sometimes.
I am of the view that
Sometimes.
they are. Let me start from that point of view. I am of the view
Sometimes,
that
sometimes they are,
Yes.
and I agree that the yardstick shifts, to another level, because people look at you like, they want to question your competence in the first place.
You're subject to a higher level of scrutiny.
Yeah, they
for some
look at
reason.
look at your qualifications, they look at your competence,
Your
and
background,
how
your
your
social
background.
life is a lot more.
Yeah, you're put on a
scrutinized than
pedestal
men.
that
But
as
at
they
the same
say.
time, sometimes don't you find that the society also, because of the level that it has elevated women to, you're also expected, for example, to behave in a certain way because, you're the mother of the
Eric,
country.
which level is this that they've been elevated to?
Remember when Sabina Sheke was here, the Muranga woman rep, and she was talking about, when you find, for example, a current crop of women leaders who are behaving in certain manner that is completely unbecoming of
These
what-
are the stereotypes, reinforcements that we
Completely
don't need to
unbecoming
know.
of what-
A
of
woman
how-
should
of
be
what
able
is
to
being
go
done.
out.
And
Look-
men get away with so much
Absolutely,
more.
a man can
Exactly.
sit down and have a drink. A woman does
Exactly.
that. It's
Yeah.
considered
And that's exactly
an
my
abomination.
unbecoming.
That's
Absolutely,
exactly
these
my
are the
point.
stereotypes we don't
Because
want.
men are doing it and it's wrong, it doesn't mean that the woman
It's
should also
not
do
wrong.
it.
It's only wrong when a woman does it. It's not
It's
wrong,
wrong
for,
even when men
for a
do
woman
it.
to
Why is
sit
it
down
not
and have a
pointed
drink.
out? Why is
Even
it
when
not
men
point-
do it.
It is
Why
not
it
wrong.
pointed
It is
out
only
when
wrong if
men
a
are
woman
doing
does
it?
it.
It is unfortunate
Yeah,
that
so
the
don't reinforce
society
those
portrays
stereotypes.
women, always portrays women in a negative way. So a woman has to work twice as hard to show that, yes, I'm competent, yes, I'm qualified, if not overqualified to be here. And sometimes even now in Kenya, we have issues of ethnicity. Somebody wants to know, huyu ametoka wapi? Huyu ni nani? Hii jina gani? People question, They see names they've never seen and they want to question.
Do you think that's intuitive? Because I did question when I saw your name.
You did.
I did.
Madam
I couldn't
Commissioner.
help it. I don't know. It's
Madam
become
Commissioner.
part and
Unatoka
parcel
wapi?
of society.
Unatoka wapi?
Yeah, I face that all the time.
Me too.
And I almost did ask you. It's not a Kenyan name, yeah. But I think sometimes we push that bar a little bit,
Right.
even over and below the table, and it's not really conducive for women, and does not augur well, because and the media also plays a role here in this negative portrayal of women. They are not given the space. Even all these discussions, I'm happy to be here. In most instances, you find it's
Jeff Koinange, it's always
male-dominated.
men.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they don't
Manuals.
look for the women. They say hakuna wanawake. Where there's so many women out there.
Where are they looking is the question.
Yeah, where are they looking? Yeah, where
Well,
are they
it's
looking?
like
There's so many women.
It's like the anecdotal slur where somebody goes to a place and finds a group of women and declares hakuna watu.
But they are there. Women are there, but because we have been intimidated, we are portrayed as the weaker person, as that one who waits to be instructed. Then you take a back seat and you always want to watch from the sidelines. But if women are given a seat at the table, they are able to make better decisions.
Absolutely.
And of course manage processes, if not better than men.
Thank you very much. I
Barack
want to
Obama
thank
would
you
agree with you.
completely.
Yes, he would agree with you.
I want to thank you very much, Lilian, for coming. We had on the hot seat this morning Lilian Mahiri-Zaja. She's a former chairperson of the IEBC. Vice chairperson of the IEBC. What are you doing now, Lilian? You're in
Among the many things that you're doing,
you're in many things.
which is the prominent one that
Pick
comes
the
to
most
mind?
prominent one.
I'm not in many things, but I thank God that I'm still serving the people of Kenya. I'm serving on the board of the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, formerly ERC, recently changed name to EPRA. And I'm also serving on the board of
Are you not the director?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Important we mentioned that.
Director. Initially, we were called commissioners. So director at EPRA. And I'm also a director at the Kenya Petroleum Refineries Limited in Mombasa.
Asante sana for joining us, and we'll invite you again, of course, to come and have conversations. This time it will be about energy. We had that kind of conversation about our energy, petroleum needs, and what we are doing and not doing. So we'll invite you to come and have a conversation on that.
I'll be glad to come.
We wish you a good day.
Thank you very much.